Hey, what is up, art geeks? How's everybody doing out there today? I hope everybody's having a great day. I hope everybody's making some amazing artwork. It is a little cloudy out today. It's a little somber outside today here in Des Moines, Iowa, and I had a fun subject to talk about today. I was moving my mom into her new condo this weekend or last weekend, and she brought a box of some of my old stuff, some of my old drawings. She had a shoebox full of old drawings from high school, and oh my gosh, brought back some really awesome memories. Just some of the best stuff I hadn't seen in ages. And especially if you're an older artist like me, and you find one of these little archived groups of works that you haven't seen. It is such a fun thing to look at. It's like looking at old photos when you're a kid. Just brings back a lot of nice memories. But it got me to thinking about just the progress I've made over 25, 30 years. I'm 45 right now. And I've been drawing my whole life. I've been drawing since I was a little kid. I don't think I really drew any portraits until I was like I'm sure I drew some sort of portrait when I was a little tiny kid, but like my first real serious portrait wasn't probably until I was probably 14, something like that, where I drew something from life and tried to shade it and do all that kind of stuff. But it got me to thinking about the progress I made. And back then, I couldn't have known how good I was going to be with my artwork. I didn't really think about it that hard, but if you're early in your career or early in your artist journey and your artwork sucks, don't worry about it. I think that's the best thing I could say is don't worry about how bad your artwork sucks, because my artwork really sucked back when I was like 16. This is something I drew when I was 16. Look at that. I mean, come on. It's not great. It's not very good. This wasn't drawn from life or anything though. Just a heads up. This was drawn just for my imagination, but still, look at how long that nose is. Almost everything I drew back then had a really long nose. What else do I have? I have something else with a really long nose. I was the long nose drawing king back then. Here's another one. Look how long that nose is. I did not know proportions of noses. Now, I think this is from the Eon Flux show though, this one. I think this is a guy from Eon Flux. Anybody remember that show? It was like an anime show from back before 2000, 1996, something like that. But, anyway, before we get into the subject too much, we're watching a painting I did back 2 weeks ago. Over the weekend, just another quick little study, little fun sketch, done in greens, as you can tell, hopefully by this point in the video. And I just found another image, just didn't think about it too hard, found an image on Pinterest, started painting it, thought I'd do some greens. Pretty straightforward, but it does turn out pretty nice. So watch the whole thing. It does turn out pretty nice. One other thing I gotta mention, I apologize, go over to my Patreon account. Lots of tutorials, art downloads. If you wanna become a better oil painter, if you wanna get better at painting in general with oil paints, especially portraits, go over to my Patreon account. You will find some stuff over there that will help you. I think I'm at 40 to 45 tutorials and exercises combined. By the end of this year, I should have a good 100. I'm always updating. I try to get at least 3 to 4 new tutorials on there every month. And I have new art downloads every month. So check that out. Now, it's thinking about all this stuff, back to what we were talking about. My mom gave me this box of old drawings I had. I thought it was the most amazing thing to check out, but it really got me to thinking, like, I bet there's a lot of people out there, people that are early in their careers that are trying to figure out if it's even worth it. Am I going to be any good? Could I be as good as this artist I follow on Instagram? Could I be as good as this artist I saw in a museum? Could I ever be this realistic? Like maybe you're struggling. Maybe you're having trouble getting over certain aspects. Maybe you're not good at shading. Maybe you're bad at getting the proportions right. Maybe it's a mix of a lot of things. Now, I will say there are some ways to figure this out, and I want to talk about that today. It's just how you can figure out if you're going to be any good. I think in a nutshell, that's basically what I want to talk about. I don't plan these things out. This is very loose. I just like to talk for a little bit. Talk for about 10 minutes about something, see where it goes. And today's subject is how can you know how good you can get with your art? Now, I will say, I wrote down some notes, got my usual notes here, per usual. And the first thing I wrote down was we all have limits. I have limits. There are artists that are better than me. There can only be one Michael Jordan. There can only be one LeBron James. There can only be one Van Gogh. You know, in every facet of life, there's always the best. And usually you're not going to be the best at any of these things. So you do have limits, but as long as you work really hard and you're obsessed about what you're doing, especially if it's in the art world, I think there's a good chance you can be pretty good at what you're doing in the art world. If you stay obsessed, you work hard, whatever amount of talent you started with, you can grow that and get better with whatever it is you want to do. I think the key is just finding something you like doing, because if you like doing it, if you can find a passion and you're good at working hard, you're going to get good. You're going to get art sales down the road. Don't worry about any of that stuff. But your art will get better, and it's really up to you how far you can take it. Now, I'm not a motivational speaker. I don't think. I guess maybe I'm trying to be a motivational speaker in this moment, but looking back at what I did, looking back at my own journey, I really didn't worry about these things, not until maybe the last 10 years or so, 10 or 15 years. Before that, it was just purely a hobby. If you want to keep your artwork a hobby for a long time, keep it a hobby. If you're happy just keeping it a hobby, you have some other skill that you love. Maybe your job is something you already love doing, and artwork is also something you love doing. Don't worry about it. This is, it's something maybe that will be your second career. Maybe you work on your stuff in secret. Keep it super top secret until you're ready to show it to the world, and then you can become an artist later in life. But you're going to get better as long as you just keep working, keep drawing. You're going to naturally get better. And that's what happened to me when I was keeping this a hobby. I would challenge. I noticed that I was doing these challenges, especially when I was just drawing, when I was drawing with just pencil. And I drew with pencil for pretty much right up until I was like 22, 23. That was when I finally did my first painting. But I noticed that I'd always go back to pencil drawing. Whenever I had some free time, I worked at architecture firms for quite a while. I would draw in my free time here and there. And I would always find that I was getting a little bit better. My shading would get a little better, my drawing skills, my ability to see shapes. But I wasn't really obsessed with where my faults were. I would just notice things as I went, like, this doesn't look right. Why doesn't it look right? And every time I do want to get progressively a little better. And I'd sometimes go a week without drawing again. And it wasn't until I realized that you need to draw every single day, or at least be thinking about art every single day. Ideally, you want to be painting or drawing every day, that I made some really significant jumps in my abilities and became better with my work at a much faster pace, I guess is the way to put it. So there are some signs, though, that maybe you're not going to be a good artist. And I guess you've got to look for those. You got to be very honest with yourself. Maybe it's just the type of art you're doing. I think that could be it. Like, if you're just obsessed with art in general, but you're doing something that you just can't seem to get your mind wrapped around, you've done maybe 100, say you've done like 100 portraits, and your first portrait is just as bad as your last one. Now, the odds of that being the case are pretty small. But if you find that people that, especially if you're in art classes and you've been in multiple art classes and you see that other kids around you are getting better faster than you, that might be a sign that you're just not going to get that great with whatever it is you're trying to do in that moment. So you might want to shift gears and try something else. But it may just mean you need to work harder. It may mean that you could be as good as these other people that are surpassing you, and you just have to work harder to keep up with them. And hard work is the key to a lot of things. If you're obsessed and you work hard and you want something, think about Rudy. Remember that movie Rudy, the little kid, the little guy that wanted to be a football player, but everybody told me it wasn't good enough. Well, he kind of proved them wrong. I mean, it's a great movie. I hope you've seen that movie. If you haven't seen Rudy, check it out. That movie will motivate you to be better at whatever it is you really want in life. Check out Rudy. There's my recommendation for getting some good motivation. But I think one of the biggest things is just consistently practicing, consistently working hard, because you could be better than a talented. If your talent is less, say you have a really talented person, your talent's down here, you can make up for that and get above, and you can become better than that person if you just work harder, I think is the best way to put it. Now, let's see. This is really starting to sound like a motivational talk. Whatever, right? I guess if it sounds like that, that's fine. Now, some other things in your journey you may want to consider, and look at my notes here. You got to be critical. You definitely need to be critical about the things you're doing. So if you look at a drawing of a person, let's just talk in portraits. If your portraits are just not looking great, you really need to be critical. You got to figure out what it is you're not doing right. You need to look at, is the shading wrong? Are the shapes? Is it just taking me forever to see shapes? No, this drawing you're watching me paint right now, it took me about an hour and a half to paint. If I would have tried to do the same painting 20 years ago, it probably would have taken 50 hours to do this exact same thing, and it still wouldn't look as good as this one that you're watching. So I think as long as you are constantly just working hard, you're going to get better. But you got to have that critical eye. You got to be objective about your own skill level. Always be comparing yourself. I know a lot of people say don't compare yourself to other people, but for me, I'm always comparing myself to the best artists I can find on the internet, because those are the people I want to be as good as. Will I ever be as good as some of those people? No. But I like to set the bar as high as possible. If you want to be satisfied with just mediocre portraits, that's fine, but always just kind of push yourself. I find that looking at other artists, looking at the success of other artists that are way over my abilities, those are the ones I like to look at. That's just the way I like to do it. I find that really helps me to keep being critical of my own work, is by looking at other work that I find to be way better than mine. That's a great way to be critical, is just comparing yourself to the best. Let's see, compare yourself to others, just already talked about that. Now, I would say this is something I already kind of talked about, but comparing yourself to your previous work. Compare yourself to work that's 5 years old, 10 years old. That's another great thing to do. Like when I was looking at these, it's very safe to say I'm better than, even if I did another drawing where I wasn't looking at somebody, it would definitely turn out better than this. This isn't too bad. I don't mind that one too much. That one's pretty good. Overcoming challenges. Another little note I wrote down. Overcoming challenges. I think there are a lot of challenges that I'm still trying to overcome. I find that even though I feel like I have a good handle on my colors, I have a good handle on seeing the shapes, I have a good handle on shading and all that stuff, I can always be better. And I'm always challenging myself to either be more efficient with it or to come up with ways to make brush strokes look better, to make it looser or tighter, or having a combination of different things happening in my portraits. There are just always these little singular challenges I'm trying to do with each individual work. I'm usually not on autopilot. I'm not sure if many artists out there that have been doing this for a long time are really ever on autopilot, but I feel like there's always some aspect of like the previous painting I did that I'm not happy with, and I try to fix that in my next painting. I think that's the key, is just always looking at your previous work to make your next one better. And eventually, once you get all these things figured out, once you get all of the skills figured out, this is when I'd say you can finally start to think about your identity as an artist, starting to think about the voice you want to have, because before you can get into that, you really need to make sure you have the skills. You need to make sure whatever talent you had to start with grows, but to make sure that your skills and your talent and your workflow, everything is there before you start worrying about sales, you start worrying about what your voice is, what your unique vision is going to be. A lot of this will grow on its own. If you paint 1,000 paintings, you're naturally going to end up with some sort of style. It's just guaranteed. Now, as far as how conceptual you want to take that, like having different concepts and having different series where you try different concepts, there's a lot of different things in there. That's like a whole different story or a whole different topic for another day. But in a nutshell, I'd say, to know how good you're going to be, you've always got to be comparing yourself to people that maybe were in art classes with you and seeing where they are now, seeing where your progress is, seeing if you are progressing, and just you'll have a general sense of where you're going to be with that particular type of art. Now, if you get to the point where you just are pretty sure that you're just not going to get to that place where you want to be, like you can't draw an eye to save your life, you can't draw a mouth to save your life, and you've tried 100 different ways, try something else for a while. See if something else maybe works better for you. Maybe you can get around the fact that you're not good at certain things in the art world. But if you just want to be an artist, maybe in general you just want to be an artist, I think we all have we're better at some things than others. For me, I think I'm better at drawing a portrait than I would be of drawing a full head to toe person or doing a full figurative from head to toe. I always find that I'm better at focusing on the face. When there's hands involved, it always seems like I can do it, but it takes a little bit more effort. And I know where my weaknesses are. So if I wanted to be better at doing a full figure, I just have to work on that, and I'd probably be able to catch that up to where everything else is. I love just painting faces. I'm actually working on a series now, or kind of in development of one, to create a full head-to-toe series where almost every painting is more or less head-to-toe. So I'm working on things myself. I think we can always get better. There's always things we can do, but at a certain point, you're going to have a good idea of where you're at. You're going to have a good idea of whether you're better than people around you, but you need to be very objective. I think just by comparing yourself to people that are the best, if you think you're only a few steps away from being the best artist out there, then I think you already have your answer. But for a lot of you out there, for myself, there's always a point in our journey where it's up in the air. So I think that's really all I wanted to talk about today. It's just so great to see some of these old drawings. There's a lot more in here, but it just got me to thinking about the subject, and I thought it'd be a great one to talk about. So just, if you want to be an artist, if you're obsessed with being an artist and you have an obsession with a certain style of art, just work really hard, give it some time, and eventually you will get it. It'll all work itself out. I think at the end of the day, it's going to work itself out for you no matter what you do. As long as you really love what you're doing and you love working hard at it and you don't mind putting in some serious hours to figure it out, it's gonna pan out. So yeah, I think that's about it. I think that's really all I wanted to talk about today. If you want some help with portrait drawing, give me a shout out. I'm always happy to email you back. If you want to email me some drawings, feel free. I am planning on starting some sort of mentorship program at some point with my Patreon account. So keep an eye on that. Sign up for my newsletter over on my website. That will always give you a heads up on that kind of stuff. So that's about it. Like, subscribe, check out my Patreon account, and that is it. So thank you, all you art geeks out there, for checking out another video. I will talk to you again very soon. Bye.